Sky Striker that I brought to locals. I want to talk about the deck list a little bit. I want to talk about my experience, how this deck felt. The idea was, I mean, of course, I like the Sky Striker deck, but the idea was with Paradise Smasher out of the format and with decks like Yami and Draco Tail making more quote-unquote fair boards, maybe we can build a Sky Striker deck that just blinds second and just and breaks boards and so on and so forth, and it seemed pretty good. It did ultimately also do pretty well at the World Championships in a relatively similar environment. There's a card releasing in Doom of Dimensions that is going to benefit this deck a lot, and I will talk about how I feel about the chances of the deck moving forward after Doom of Dimensions as well. But first, I want to show you what I decided to play yesterday. Keep in mind, this is before Doom of Dimensions, which is also why I played Sky Striker, because I couldn't play like post Doom of Dimension, like Draco Tail or Yami or whatever. 3 Rays, 2 Rose, because I'm a coward, and I played Desires, and I didn't want to play 1 Rose, but I think Desires just felt way too vital. Like, you know, Desires just felt too good, basically. So I decided to go 3 and 2. I think if you want to play without Desires, it's completely reasonable. I mean, you're always going to play 1 Rose if you don't play Desires. 3 Engage for the Striker spells, 3 Linkage, 3 Widow Anchor. This is for the most part standard. I played 2 Lemnis Gate because I was scared of losing it from Desires again. Once again, because Desires is at 3 in the TCG, I decided to play all 3, and therefore I made the concession of playing a second Lemnis and a second Rose. You can get away with 1 each, but I liked it. I play 1 Shard Cannon because it hits Mitsurugi, at least in theory. That was my that was the idea. Mitsurugi is a deck that is hyped a lot at the moment, and so I like playing 1 copy of Shard Cannon because you can recycle it to outgrind the Mitsurugi opponent, you know, banish their Kusanagi, reset it with multi-roll, which is the next card. Also against Draco Tail, I did banish the 1 of Gulamel a couple of times, which is neat. 1 Jamming Waves is the last Sky Striker card. Still no Hornet Drones. I still don't really... In going first, I can understand playing Hornet Drones. Or also after the Radiant Typhoon card comes out, I think playing Hornet Drones is more reasonable. I think blind second, the fact that Hornet Drones is a starter doesn't really matter. And I think it's just too low quality of a card. Jamming Waves was kind of nice. I liked it. So that is the Sky Striker package. Then, like I mentioned, we have 3 Pot of Desires, 3 Upstart Goblins, 3 Forbidden Droplet, 3 Trust, 1 Balance. So this is your consistency spells. Just fill the graveyard as fast as you can, and your board breakers, followed up by 2 Raigekis. The reason why it's 2 Raigekis, I can tell you, I couldn't find my 3rd. I'm 100% certain that I have 3 somewhere, but when I was building the deck yesterday for locals, I just could not find it for the life of me. So I just had to play 2. I couldn't find my 3rd. Well, it was fine. Raigeki was good. I would have played a 3rd if I had it. I also played 1 Duster because I think right now, like there's a lot of decks that set up a lot of back row that can be quite annoying. I'm talking about like all the Yami set cards. I'm talking about like the Mitsurugi set prayers and so on and so forth. People are setting their imperms, of course. Of course, Draco Tail. Of course, they have Draco Tail Flame, but forcing Draco Tail Flame with this is pretty high value. It's very notable in the Draco Tail matchup that you have multiple ways to dodge Draco Tail Flame, which is a very good play most of the time when you have Linkage or Droplet, is to activate a spell card that they want to negate with Flame, and then when they target the Flame, you just send it off of the field to basically dodge the targeting negation. This is a blind second list because that's what I really wanted to try, and honestly, I think that is the way moving forward. I think blind second is good. That felt good with Sky Striker. I liked that a lot. There's 1 Rhoda. There's 1 Terraforming with Chicken Game, which I will say felt a little weird to play these 2 together. I think I got unlucky with it too. Like the Chicken Game in general, in theory, this is a really high quality card in this deck because you just play it, you draw a card, and then you have a free send for Linkage or Droplet, which is really nice. Of course, you get to play Terraforming, which is another spell in your graveyard. I think post Doom of Dimensions, I would still play these 2, but I would also play 1 Area Zero. Together with the new Radiant Typhoon spell, you also play 1 Mystical Space Typhoon, which can turn your Area Zero into a Ray or Rose, which I think is nice. So that makes a lot more sense together then. 1 Called By. I negated Droll and Lockbird with this yesterday, which was really crucial. Called By is amazing in this deck. You care a lot about Ash Blossom. You care a lot about Droll and Lockbird, obviously. Droll post side. Here's the thing. This deck is really, really bad into Droll and Lockbird. It's awful. genuinely awful, which is one of the main concerns about this deck for me moving forward, because I think Droll and Lockbird is going to be a very popular side deck card. I think people aren't going to main deck Droll necessarily that much. Post side for decks like Luna Light and Mitsurugi, I think Droll is going to be very popular. And yesterday as well, I think everybody side deck Droll against me. So that's rough. The last card, because I didn't have room for Foolish Burial Goods, because I played extra copies of Rose and Linkage, I decided to play Imperm instead of Black Goat Laughs as a one of thrust target, just in case someone sends me first in game one. And I felt like Imperm was an okay card to have in general as a board breaker or hand trap, like just a one of I feel like wouldn't hurt. The Imperm didn't feel good to me. I think it's probably better to either go back to Goods and Black Goat or just don't play a trap for going first and say screw it. Okay, so while the entire deck is laid out here, let me talk about, before I show you extra and side deck, let me talk about how the deck felt and how I feel like the deck is going to improve moving forward. The deck felt good. I think the Draco Tail matchup is very interesting with it and very fun actually, which is it's a good thing because the Draco Tail matchup is going to be very relevant moving forward. I didn't play against any Yummy yesterday, which isn't surprising because they don't have Marshmallow yet, but the Draco Tail matchup is good. It requires some maneuvering, which I messed up here and there. So I think with proper practice, because this deck is not easy to play, I feel like it was a matter of, I went second with it. I was able to break basically any board that everybody made at locals without a problem. But I think sometimes I focused a little bit too much on trying to win the game immediately, when I think the main focus should probably be to break the board and set up your own board for the follow-up turn. That was a mistake that I made, is I tried to focus too much on actually trying to go for game, which meant that I made like decisions early on in the turn. Like, let's say in the early turn, in the beginning of the turn, I searched a Linkage, for example, because I felt like I may have been able to OTK with it. And that's why I chose to add the Linkage. And then later down the line, I realized like, hey, I'm not going to be able to go for a game. I have to go for a grind game here. And then maybe the Linkage that I searched earlier in the turn was worse than if I had searched a multi-roll or a Lemniscate, right? So I think this deck requires a lot of experience, but if you have that experience, I think it is a good pick. Here's a couple of problems that I noticed though, that I think everyone should be aware of if you play this deck. Number one, the new time rules are not good for Sky Striker, because this deck, I think, is at its best when you blind second with it, you let your opponent full combo, and then you break their board, which can take a decent amount of time. Especially if you can't go for game because you have to break their board and then set up your own and then deal with their follow-up turn. A lot of decks in the current format, specifically Draco Tail, have pretty strong grind games, so it's not going to be as simple as, they're not going to like pass to one interruption on the next turn, right? So like you have to play the deck quickly. You can't spend too much time thinking about everything, and you have to realize when you maybe have to scoop a game early or not, which is something that I wasn't able to do very well yesterday. So I got close-ish to time with the deck a couple of times, especially if I wasn't able to win 2-0, which I was able to win 2-0 a couple of times, but whenever it went to 3 games, it was tough. I didn't get a double loss during locals, but like it was close a couple of times. So I think that is something to consider. Another thing is Droll and Lockbird. Droll and Lockbird is a huge problem for this deck. That makes it really annoying, especially post side. Droll and Lockbird against this deck is almost as powerful as Artifact Lancia was against Malice. So the fact that everybody is siding Droll is really not pleasant for Sky Striker. Still, this card is something I wanted to bring up. I wasn't able to play it yesterday because it is in Doom of Dimensions, which is releasing next week, but this card is absolutely amazing in Sky Striker, and I felt like if I had that card, I would have liked the deck even more. So what this card does is essentially it's a quick play spell that says draw 2 cards, then if you have a Radiant Typhoon card or a quick play spell in your hand, discard one of them or your entire hand if you don't. This is basically an Allure of Darkness for this deck. It's a quick play spell, so you can activate it in the draw phase to play around Droll and Lockbird a little bit. But just in general, this is the thing that this deck needs to really push the consistency over the edge. You know, like this deck is already surprisingly consistent now with 3 Raid, 3 Engage, 3 Linkage, 3 Desires in an Upstart Goblin deck, Rhoda, you know, like the deck is consistent enough, but being able to play 3 more basically Allure of Darkness for quick play spells is amazing in this deck. Sometimes even being able to put a Lemniscate into your grave is going to be a huge advantage as well, because that card can help you in some scenarios when you have it in the graveyard early. This card also can search Mystical Space Typhoon from your deck, and you can activate both of these effects each. Like if you draw 2 of this card, you can activate one to draw 2 and the other one to search Mystical Space Typhoon, which is going to put 3 spells in your grave real quick, which I think is awesome. So I would highly recommend after Doom of Dimension to play 3 copies of Radiant Typhoon Vision as well as a Mystical Space Typhoon. Here's the thing. I noticed something when I played this deck, and that is that this deck has a lot of draw power already. And with that Radiant Typhoon spell, that's going to be even more exaggerated, basically. I had some trouble with drawing once per turn cards multiple times. Of course, in this deck, mainly Pot of Desires, Forbidden Droplet, and Triple Tactics Talents are cards, and Thrust, not Talents, are once per turn spells. Now, I think Thrust is too powerful to not play at 3. Thrust, I think, is too important. Desires is also very strong. I don't think you cut Desires completely, but I could see playing 2. I could see playing 2 because it's once per turn anyways, and this deck draws a lot of cards. And then maybe with 2 Desires, you could argue it's okay to risk playing 1 Rose. So that is something you can do. I think the Imperm can go. I think the Shark Cannon and the Jamming Waves are not necessarily staples. So there is some room for stuff to cut for the new Radiant Typhoon card. So that's something I wanted to mention. Let's quickly go over the extra deck, and then I'll talk about the side deck a little bit, which for side decking was really awkward with this deck, but I'll talk about that in a second. Extra deck, 3-0, 3 Kagari, 1 Shizuku, 1 Hayate, 1 Kaina. I had no issues with resource management with this lineup. I was always able to. Usually you don't need these twice, and even if you do, you have Lemnis Gate to recycle them relatively easily, so that was no problem. Same with 1 Azalea and 1 Zeke. I never needed more of those. This Sky Striker package was completely sufficient for me. Then, of course, there's 1 SP, 1 Dark the Dark Charmer. I like this card in this current format a lot. I think it's very nice to steal a Murakumo to be able to Raigeki the opponent. That was the main idea behind it. It also came up in some other game states, especially when like sometimes you have, let's say you have a Kagari in the extra monster zone and you take a dark monster from your opponent. What that allows you to do is you can go into dark, you can then take their dark monster from the graveyard, and then you can turn those 2 into Azalea to get back into a Sky Striker name, which I thought was cool. I played 1 Hita. That's going to make sense when I show you the side deck. And I played 1 Typhon because we're blinding second and we're trying to grind. So I thought Typhon was appropriate. That was the extra deck. I have no complaints here, no cards I missed. I used most of this extra deck except for Typhon. That just didn't come up yesterday. You can just make Zeke. You can make Zeke instead of this Dark into Azalea play, but then Azalea gets to pop a card and Zeke doesn't. So if you want to deal with like a back row, for example, against Draco Tail, I did this a lot where I went into Dark because they made Philia Rageous. So I went Dark, steal the Philia, and then made Azalea with that. Side deck. The side deck for this deck I think was not perfect. I really was not sure what was gonna happen. Like if I play game 1 and my opponent sees I'm playing Sky Striker, are they gonna send me first or not? So like let's say I win game 1, what do I side deck? Do I side deck for going first? Do I side deck for going second? I thought it was really hard to make that call. And so my side deck ended up being a little weird because of that. That is something that also just like takes practice. For example, there was like a K9 Crystron deck that I played against, and that deck still just went first. But then there was Draco Tail decks, and the Draco Tail decks, they did send me first because they, you know, Draco Tail like doesn't want to go first against Sky Striker. So my solution was to side deck Ash Blossom, because in my head I was like, okay, I can side deck Ash and that card is going to be fine whether I have to go first or second. That's why I thought Ash was a fine pick. And Ash was okay. I didn't hate Ash because I can basically, I sided it in whenever my opponent was making the choice and I wasn't sure whether they were going to send me first or not. Like against Draco Tail, for example, I was like, okay, Ash is going to be fine no matter what. I played 3 Fuvas. I like Fuva in this deck in theory. Not in game 1. In game 1, I don't like it, but in game 2 and 3, I think it has some more merit because this is basically an anti-droll measure in some matchups, because one thing that this deck cannot handle is when your opponent plays a combo deck, makes a full board, and has a Droll and Lockbird in hand. So what Fuva does, it's going to discourage your opponent from make the full board. So they're going to make a smaller board, and it also gives you a higher chance to draw your outs to Droll and Lockbird. So basically the best of both worlds. It's going to make the deck, the board easier to break. It's going to make the Droll and Lockbird less impactful because they have a smaller board in front of it. And it also makes it easier for you to draw an out to it. I decided, because I was really scared of Lunalight, I decided to play the Sky Striker Kaiju. But because the Sky Striker Kaiju is once per turn, you can only special summon it once per turn, I didn't feel confident with it because I'm basically playing almost no hand traps, so my opponent can probably make 2 Liger Dancers. So I also played 1 Dogoran, and that's what the Hita is for, right? So in theory, against Lunalight, you have this, which is very easily searchable by Sky Striker, and then there I can make Hita with a Kagari, and that can search Dogoran, so I have 2 outs to Liger, and I thought that was in theory a good split. I didn't play against any Lunalight, so I can't say if that works, but I think in theory I feel pretty good about having multiple answers to the Lunalight deck now, because I think Lunalight is one of the decks that people should have on their radar now, and so I decided to respect it by playing both in the deck. I side deck 3 Salesman. I believe this is something that you just have to do with Sky Striker, because Droll Lockbird, like I said, Droll Lockbird freaking FTKs you. And I also played 1-dimensional barrier. So basically the plan against Droll Lockbird is either activate Salesman, call Droll, called by it, or worst case, the triple tactics cards. If you get Drolled, you can thrust, set D barrier, or Talons look at their hand. Yeah. No Daruma for Lunalight. There could be a Daruma for Lunalight, but I'm a little too worried to rely on that because they have the Silver Hound in the grave to negate it. So like you kind of have to bait that somehow first, which is not always a given, but you could also play a Karma Cannon for Lunalight. The reason why I didn't play Black Goat is because this is before Doom of Dimension, so I didn't expect any yummies. Post Doom of Dimension, you would obviously play Black Goat, but I figured like Obedience Schooled is already at 1. They don't have the Marshmallow yet, so I didn't expect people to actually play Yummy yet. So that's why there's no Black Goat. And then I played 3 Evenlies for Draco Tail. It's really good against Draco Tail because you basically win the grind game on the spot if you resolve an Evenly against it, which I thought was nice. I never actually resolved Evenly. I just didn't draw it against Draco Tail. In general, I think Evenly and Fuva were both a little bit awkward. I believe I won every single game 1 that I played. And after I won game 1, I wasn't sure if my opponent was going to go first or not, so I didn't side deck these. And then most of my opponents, the Draco Tail opponents, did send me first, so I was happy I didn't put this in. But at the same time, if people actually send you first, maybe you should have more stuff in your side deck for going first. If it's realistic that everyone sends you first, you have to play something for that. So yeah, a Draco Tail should probably send you first all the time, so you can probably play more D barriers or something like that for it, or Heat Wave. Sure, the side deck could have been done better. I kind of threw it together last minute and just wanted to try out some things. Part of it was good. It was funny because I didn't play against Lunalight, but I did play against Pearly, so you can guess how that went. But yeah, my impression of this deck was that it felt pretty good. It felt like a viable option for YCS Lil. I'm gonna consider it. It definitely had its flaws though. Droll and Lockbird felt like a menace. If I didn't have an answer to Droll, it felt really, really bad. And that is a problem in a format where I think presumably most people are going to side deck 3 Droll and Lockbirds, and that's tough. The timer is also an issue, but the positive thing is that I feel like if I had played the deck better, if I had more practice, if I have time to work on the list, and with the new card from Doom of Dimension, the Radiant Typhoon Vision, I think this deck is a really, really strong pick. One thing I really like about this deck is that it doesn't even feel bad going first with it. If my opponent sends me first, I don't think I care that much. Like, the setup going first is not bad. It's just better going second. It's completely fine going first, but it's just better going second. So it's not like Tenpai, where you are kind of reliant on going second because you need the battle phase, and if your opponent sends you first, your deck kind of does nothing. That is not the case with this deck. I think this deck is capable of making good boards going first, and I like that. So yeah, that was my experience with Sky Striker at locals.